Greetings and salutations, my friend. We have been to US recently, with me covering up the attempted assassination and covering the video covering the attempted assassination on Donald Trump. And we've also been to France recently with another video of mine covering the not covering up, that's an important difference, covering the Olympics and Imam Khalif and so on. So right now I think it's about time we take a trip to UK together, and oh boy, it's going to be quite a rocky ride.
It's me, Franz, this is to all you fucking Muppets that I thought I were a Muppet, mate.
Nobody ever went up to Winston Churchill and said, "Hey, Winnie, you can't lead Great Britain into victory in the Second World War because you're a bit of a chubber."
So in this video, I'm going to give you 3 separate stories. All they have in common is that all of them happened in the UK. If you're interested only in one of them, there are chapters in the timeline, so click on the one that interests you, and if you want to watch the whole thing, knock yourself out. First, let's start with something that I personally think is a very good development, a needed development, and that is the NHS is about to launch the first healthcare service aimed specifically at the detransitioners. And while I think it is something that was needed for a very long time, it should have happened a long time ago, but you know what, better late than never. Well, I think that the fact that the topic of detransition is getting more and more attention in the media, and more detransitioners are actually, you know, speaking out, I think it definitely contributed to that development. And while I live in Norway and we do not have this type of service here, I really hope that Norway will follow in the UK's footsteps. Now, why exactly is this type of service needed? Well, I think that detransitioners are a group of people, a relatively small group of people, of course, who have a very specific need, right? And you know, a lot of the time we are sort of left out to fend for ourselves once we detransition, right? Sure, you can go to those gender clinics and so on, but the thing is, a lot of detransitioners do not want to associate with those places and with those doctors. And so we are made of our own, which is not necessarily the best choice you can make for your own health. And that's basically what I've been doing for, well, over 10 years. I've been basically monitoring my health by myself after a treatment, a procedure, that is the bottom surgery, which leaves you with your body not producing any hormones. And there you go. You're on your own now, right? And I can totally understand why a lot of detransitioners do not want to go back to those gender clinics, because even in my own case, if I think of going back or even talking to the doctor that was treating me back when I was living as trans, I'm like, hell no, there's just too much trauma there, you know? And do I hate him? No, I don't think hating is worth my time, to be honest, but he's definitely not someone I would like to be in the same room with. I would feel really, really uncomfortable with that. So, I would definitely wouldn't be going back to the same places to get the treatment. And then there's, you know, another problem there is that you have a lot of distrust towards those people. Like, yeah, those are the people who are partially the reason why you ended up there, right? Where you are. So, are those the type of doctors you want to trust? Perhaps not. And sure, I would say, yeah, they are helping some individuals. Yeah, but if transition was not the right choice for you, if it is something you regret, or if you have suffered complications or side effects, that sort of changes your perspective on things. And you know, I think this sort of service would work best as sort of a guidance, like what are you supposed to do when it comes to hormones? Should you take any for the surgeries to reverse your transition? Although, you know, I think a lot of us detransitioners are not very fond of surgeries, me included. I'm definitely not willing to take any surgeries after the transition. Like, I've been asked sometimes if I'm going to do a surgery to recreate my penis. I think it's a ridiculous proposition, to be honest, because it is something I said 1 year ago on this channel. I'm going to say it again. You can't create something real out of something fake. What I have right now is fake. And honestly, like, in my case, recreating a penis would be even more difficult than a phalloplasty, a surgery that sort of creates a phallus, a penis, or penis-looking thing, or what it actually is. It's much easier to perform that sort of surgery on trans men because their clitoris is enlarged due to testosterone, so it sort of like already resembles a penis. And you work with that. Actually, that sort of surgery is called metoidioplasty, which doesn't really require any skin or tissue from the rest of your body to be used for that. You just work with what you have. And you know, they can vary in size, just how much your clitoris gets enlarged when you're on testosterone as a female. But in my case, well, I'm a male, I do not have a clitoris. Whatever they created there is sort of like a replacement for that, imitation. And that does not grow. Okay, it's an old tissue from what I used to have, but it remains the way it is. Testosterone does nothing to change that. Or the only thing it will change, though, is that you will get more erections. Those erections will be harder, of course, but when it comes to size, nothing to be done here. So our results, the trans males' results of that type of surgery will be worse than what trans men would get with metoidioplasty. And in my opinion, that's just not worth it. And then, you know, there's a risk of further complications when you're playing with surgeries. But you know, there are, let's say, male detransitioners who have developed a lot of breast growth during their transition, and they may wish to remove that, obviously. I think, you know, they may feel more comfortable if they go to doctors and surgeons who are not affiliated with gender-affirming care. And it's not even about opposing gender-affirming care, because not all detransitioners oppose gender-affirming care. It is more about the trauma, right? And if you already have medical trauma, you know, you will be uncomfortable with that, no matter what happens, no matter what you're doing. But I think where you go to, what doctors, has a lot to say, and if it helps one feel more comfortable in that sort of environment, I think that is beneficial. And same goes for detransitioner females who may want their breasts back, who may want, you know, to have implants or something. Even though with your breast tissue completely removed, as is the case of trans men, your results will likely not be that good, and that is also something to consider. And to all women who have detransitioned, who have had their breasts removed, I want you to know that you are not any less of a woman because of lack of that. You know, a lot of women get their breasts removed because of, let's say, cancer. They're not any less of women, just like I'm not any less of a man because I have had my penis removed. And finally, one very important benefit with this sort of service, I think, would be a better mental health service for the transitioners. Because I think, you know, a lot of therapists, a lot of psychologists, they don't really know how to handle that, because it is not something they are familiar with, it's not something they have been trained at. And you know, when over 1 year ago I posted my first video on detransition, on my story of detransition, just 1 year before that, the first person I ever opened up to was a private psychiatrist, no, not psychiatrist, psychologist that I went to see, and I told her that, and you know, all she said was, "I imagine that must be tough." Now I'm like, you know what, I don't have any degree in psychology, I never went to a single psychology class in my whole life, and I would probably have something better to say than that. Yeah, I imagine it must be tough. Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. So I definitely think that psychologists and therapists who specialize in treating women and men who have detransitioned, who have regretted their transition, or who have suffered complications from their surgeries or side effects from hormones, I think that is very, very much needed. Unfortunately, not everyone seems to be agreeing with me. I want to show you a screenshot from Reddit, which was originally posted by Richie Herron on his Twitter account, so it's a courtesy of Richie. Big shout out to Richie. I have had Richie on my channel 2 times, and I have been on his channel as well. So go check out those videos if you haven't. Listen to our conversations together. But what I think is really interesting about this Reddit post, this comment, is that it really shows why some people don't think that this service might be a good idea. Telegraph article, NHS to launch first service for trans patients who want to return to birth gender. I think it's very important to ask, who asked for this service? Because it's not us. Well, sorry to break it to you, darling, but not everything's about you. I know, a shocker, right? Who would have thought? But no, the world does not revolve around you, and just because you may think you do not have a need for certain service or certain treatment does not mean that it shouldn't exist. Well, should we also say, treatment for dementia? Well, who asked for this? Because it's not me. I'm 20 years old. I do not have dementia. Well, guess what? Before you turn around, you might be 70, and time flies. And you might have a need for that treatment in the future. The reason why I'm saying this is because there is this assumption that this treatment will not benefit trans people, which I actually disagree with. And let me tell you why it might benefit you. Maybe not, but it will benefit some. So there's a small percentage of trans people who are going to detransition in the future. What percentage that is exactly, hard to tell. There are different estimates ranging from 1% or less than 1% to as much as 30-something%. Personally, I think it's much more than 1%, but also definitely much less than 30 or 40%. I think that's an exaggeration. That's sort of like propaganda to me. People think that, oh, they're all detransitioning. Truth is, we don't know. So we can only speculate. I'm not going to give you numbers and tell you like, oh, this here is the truth, right? We can talk about research that has been done, and I've talked about that in the past, but this is not what I wish to focus on here. Let's say hypothetically that 5% of trans people will detransition at some point. When? Well, that is not a given. Could be next year, could be after 10 years, you never know. And for different reasons, right? Because not all of those reasons are regret. You never know where you might find yourself in 5 or 10 years, or how you might think or perceive yourself in the future. And who knows, it might be a service that might be of benefit for you, might be very beneficial for you. So don't stop on something that might be of help in the future. But even if you're not to detransition, I still think that this sort of service could be beneficial for you. Because it's not only detransitioners who have suffered from complications from bottom surgery. And if you look around YouTube, there's a lot of trans people who talk about those complications, who even talk about the trauma it has caused them, physical and psychological. And those are not people who detransition, they still live as trans, they still identify as the opposite sex, and are happy with that. But they have suffered because of the surgery. Whether they regret the surgery or not, that's a different story, right? But you still may benefit from a mental health service that helps detransitioners. Just a thought. I think that trans people and detransitioners share so much in common, actually. We are not two completely separate groups, you know. I think there's a huge overlap there. And although we have that overlap, I also think that we have our separate needs. And I think that meeting our needs does not necessarily have to be exclusive of each other, you know. It's not like, I don't know, a lion and a tiger see each other and they have to kill each other, only one has to survive. No. We can have our needs met, you can have your needs met, and my right to have my needs met should not stand in a way for you to have your needs met, and vice versa, you know? So don't step on the flowers in my garden, and I won't be stepping on the flowers in your garden. Don't be pissing in my stew, and I promise not to piss in yours. Although, there's another comment on this screenshot from Reddit that I think is kind of funny. What even is a detransition service? You wait 5 years to stop being given a prescription. This is going to be as busy as the trans-only international swimming event. No one has ever taken part in it. Look, in some way, they're not wrong. It's much harder to transition than it is to detransition, right? Well, you just go off testosterone, you go off estrogen, and your body more or less goes back to normal, right? I say more or less because, well, how reversible the treatment is really is dependent on many factors, like on you as an individual and how far you actually went through your transition process, right? Because, yeah, a lot of effective testosterone and estrogen can be reversed, as we have seen in a lot of cases of detransitioners who are passing as their birth sex. But, well, if you have had your gonads removed, it will never go back to how it was. Or if you have lived as a trans person on hormones and have had multiple surgeries over the years, your chances of achieving the sort of look you had before you transitioned is much less likely. And, you know, like I said before, the need to, let's say, have your breast tissue removed after transition can be needed for some. So it's not like, oh, it's just, yeah, not going to the doctor anymore, not going to take those hormones anymore. Because, as I said, this is exactly what we've been doing, and this is not the most healthy decision you can make, to be unsupervised in a situation like that. You know, and as for me, you know, I have detransitioned many years ago. I don't think I would benefit from this service as much, other than mental health care, better mental health care for detransitioners, definitely. But I think this is going to help a lot of people in the future, and I think that's a good thing. You also try to undermine the importance of the service because there are very few people who would have a need for the service. And yes, you know, there are very few detransitioners out there. I would even say, you know, there are very few trans people out there compared to non-trans individuals. And then, you know, those of us who have detransitioners, we're even fewer. There's not many of us. But yeah, are you trying to say that minorities don't matter? You don't matter because there's few of you? That's very bigoted. You know that, right? What you're saying right there is very bigoted. Deal with it. But, moving on, Rowan Atkinson has recently given a speech on freedom of speech and expression. And I don't know about you, but me, as a kid, I was a big fan of Mr. Bean. You know, being a kid in the 90s, Mr. Bean was just really loved watching. And later on I really loved Rowan Atkinson and Rat Race and Johnny English, at least the first one, because all the sequels were kind of meh. But I absolutely fucking loved the first Johnny English and Mr. Bean, the TV series and the films. Loved that as a kid. But honestly, after that, I never actually followed Rowan Atkinson in any way, haven't watched many of his films. mostly just forgot about him, to be honest, until he showed up on my YouTube feed with this speech. And let me tell you, it's a phenomenal speech. And you know, I think we really need more actors and celebrities and public people to speak out, because UK is going kind of insane, to be honest. And I'm not going to show you the whole speech, because I really think you should go check it out. I'm going to leave the link in the description, but I'm going to show you some parts and discuss it. But first, just listen to the opening of this.
My starting point when it comes to the consideration of any issue relating to free speech is my passionate belief that the second most precious thing in life is the right to express yourself freely. The most precious thing in life, I think, is food in your mouth, and the third most precious is a roof over your head. But a fixture for me in the number 2 slot is free expression, just below the need to sustain life itself. That is because I have enjoyed free expression in this country all my professional life and fully expect to continue to do so. Personally, I suspect highly unlikely to be arrested for whatever laws exist to contain free expression because of the undoubtedly privileged position that is afforded to those of a high public profile. So my concerns are less for myself and more for those more vulnerable because of their lower profile. Like the man arrested in Oxford for calling a police horse gay, or the teenager arrested for calling the Church of Scientology a cult, or the cafe owner arrested for displaying passages from the Bible on a TV screen.
And you know, if you think about it, a lot of this shit you can get arrested for in the UK sounds absolutely bonkers, right? Calling Scientologists a cult. That's a crime, isn't it? It's a fact. It's a fact. It is a cult. And I would go even further than that and say they're not jobs. And if calling them a cult would get you arrested, I don't know what calling them a not job would get me. Probably death penalty or something. So, bobbies, if you want to go after me, it's all game. They're not jobs. They're not jobs. If you want to go after me, come on, come at me, but I'm not going down without a fight. You know, last year I've covered another story from UK when a teenage girl with autism was arrested for comparing a police officer to her lesbian grandma.
Why are you doing units coming? Don't worry. She hasn't done anything. She's autistic. I don't care. She's autistic. I know you're okay. I'm telling you, I've got units coming. She's going to be arrested. Calm down. She's autistic. Can you stop staring at her, please? She's got autism. Can you just stand there? She's in a cupboard. She can't go anywhere. She can't go anywhere. I think she said the word lesbian. Her nana is a lesbian. She's married to a woman. She's not homophobic. Look what you're clenching your fist. Go away from my teenage daughter. What is up with you? There is something wrong with you, mate.
Apparently that's a criminal offence. And since then there have been many instances of people getting arrested over what they're saying on Facebook.
Okay, the time's 20 to 3, 14:40. I'm arresting you on suspicion of improper use of the electronic communications network. I'm just 127 Communications Act, okay? So you do not have to say that may harm your defence if you don't mention one question subject to later on in court. Anything you do say may be given evidence. Do you understand that?
So I'm actually being arrested?
You're going to be arrested, okay?
Right.
So you got to the police station.
Right.
Okay, this is in relation to some comments that you've made on a Facebook page. Okay.
Oh, really? Oh, it's a Facebook crime, is it?
Okay.
Anyone who's been arrested, we can search them under Section 32 of Basic Criminal Act.
Right.
That's for dangerous items.
I don't know about you, but that is dystopian as fuck. And you know me, I'm someone who's very pro freedom of speech. Even if you and me, if it is something we absolutely disagree on, and I find myself disagreeing with both liberals and conservatives quite a lot on quite many issues, know that I will support your right to say anything you want. I think that Rowan Atkinson makes 3 main arguments in his speech. And the first one is that it is very hard to determine what is offensive because it is very subjective.
The clear problem with the outlawing of insult is that too many things can be interpreted as such. Criticism is easily construed as insult by certain parties. Ridicule easily construed as insult. Sarcasm, unfavourable comparison, merely stating an alternative point of view to the orthodoxy can be interpreted as insult. And because so many things can be interpreted as insult, it is hardly surprising that so many things have been, as the examples I talked about earlier show.
What you deem offensive, I may not think of as offensive, and what I think of as offensive, you may not. So it's very hard to determine that in like any objective terms. What terms exactly should we be basing it on? There's nothing universal here. Second is that the tolerance of intolerance has become the new intolerance.
It is what you might call the new intolerance, a new but intense desire to gag uncomfortable voices of dissent. I am not intolerant, say many people, say many softly spoken, highly educated, liberal-minded people. I'm only intolerant of intolerance. And people tend to nod sagely and say, oh yes, wise words, wise words. And yet if you think about this supposedly inarguable statement for longer than 5 seconds, you realize that all it is advocating is the replacement of one kind of intolerance with another, which to me doesn't represent any kind of progress at all.
And like, I understand what he's trying to say here, but honestly, I think, and that's a big issue of tolerance, right? Because a tolerance has to have a limit. You cannot have an unlimited tolerance, okay? If you have unlimited tolerance, you're a pushover. That's what you are at that point. You need to have some backbone, and in order to have some backbone, you have to have certain limits on your tolerance. And that applies to your individual life. Like if someone, you invite someone to your home, and they have mud all over the shoes, they don't take off their shoes, and walking around, you have mud all over the place. You can't just like tolerate that. Like, yeah, you know, I'm tolerant. I'm tolerant. I'll do whatever you want in my house. Please go ahead. No, you kick that person the fuck out of your house, right? Like, you won't be disrespecting me at my house like that. So I do think that tolerant people should be intolerant of some things, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like, if there are people who, let's say, come to your country who don't respect your tradition, your customs, and they want to destroy those traditions and customs and replace them with their own, I don't think that is something we should be tolerating. And the same way, I also think that, you know, if you're a gay person and someone wants to take away your rights, I don't think that is something you should be tolerating either. Right? But when it comes to someone's opinion and someone's need to express themselves, even if you disagree with them, even if they say, let's say they think that gay marriage should be illegal, which I disagree with, or if they say that transition should be illegal, which I also disagree with, I also think like those are their personal opinions that they should have right to express. And if you disagree with that, well, this is the room for the counter-arguments, right? This is the time for the counter-arguments to swim by, right? Just throw them at him as hard as you can. And this brings me back to the third point that Rowan Atkinson makes.
Underlying prejudices, injustices, or resentments are not addressed by arresting people. They are addressed by the issues being aired, argued, and dealt with, preferably outside the legal process. For me, the best way to increase society's resistance to insulting or offensive speech is to allow a lot more of it. As with childhood diseases, you can better resist those germs to which you have been exposed. We need to build our immunity to taking offence so that we can deal with the issues that perfectly justified criticism can raise.
And yes, this is something I agree with 100%. The best way to defeat bad ideas is with good ideas. Something you disagree with, argue against that, create proper arguments, and this also helps you develop better arguments for your own cause, right? For your own case. If it is not something you're able to defend, if you would rather silence your, I don't even like the word opponent, but someone who disagrees with, you may see them as an opponent if you like. I prefer more neutral language, but silencing them is not the answer. And then there's another problem here, because if you're supportive of this sort of authoritarianism that can silence someone's voice, be prepared for the fact that at some point they're also going to silence you. It will be your turn one day. A government or corporative power that can censor someone's voice on the other side of the fence is also capable of silencing your voice. Keep that in mind. And this is part of the reason why I also agree with the likes of Noam Chomsky.
What's called cancel culture now is standard establishment procedure. That's the way the mainstream works. You don't like something, you don't let the guy get a job, you don't let his books be published, you cancel his meetings. It goes on all the time. What's new is that segments of the left are trying to put into it. That's a mistake. It's a mistake in principle. It's a mistake in tactics. It's a gift to the right. They love it. In fact, Trump, you can see by the publicity it gets. They love it. Right wing is ecstatic. You block somebody's talk, they present themselves as noble defenders of free speech against the left wing fascists. You're gaining, you're losing the opportunity. Suppose somebody comes to campus whose views you hate. Okay, one thing you can do is give them a gift. Keep them from talking. They're ecstatic. Big gift. The other thing you can do is let them come to campus. Use it as an educational opportunity. Set up counter meetings, expose them, bring up the issues they're talking about, get people to think about them and work on them. It's a major opportunity.
Noam Chomsky is a leftist that I like quite a lot. I have been a fan of Noam Chomsky, both when it comes to politics and linguistics. Really, and I think that what Chomsky said there is spot on. Yep, pretty much so. I think the only thing I might not agree with Chomsky on is that left for censorship is a new development. It's really not. The left has been doing it for such a long time. I mean, holy shit, have you heard of, I don't know, Soviet Union? Yeah, you know that little thing very few people have heard of. I was born not long after the fall of Berlin Wall. I was born in Poland, but my grandparents lived in Poland under communism, and let me tell you just how rampant censorship was under Soviet Union. So no, this is nothing new, and censorship is not something that is exclusive to the left or the right. They're both doing that. The current narrative on the right is that left is like cancel culture and censorship, but you know, the right has been doing it quite a lot, and I have also talked about it on this channel. And even if you look at countries like Poland, where the TV stations are owned by the Conservative Party, I don't know if something has changed, because I'm not that updated on what's going down in Poland. Well, I know that at least there has been a lot of censorship of any views that go against the party's views, right? So it's authoritarianism. It's not the left or right. It's authoritarianism. And you may be thinking, you know, you're silencing voices you don't like for your own comfort, really, because you're not doing it to defeat what you're against. You're doing it for your own comfort, because you do not want to be heard by words. You can't really silence people's voices like that, because be prepared that this will bite you in the ass one day, and really be aware of what you're inviting into your own home, because that is totalitarianism, that is authoritarianism. This is what it's going to develop into, and we already see the circus that is happening. And if nothing is done against that, it's only going to get worse. So please grow some balls and learn to debate, learn to argue for your case and against someone else's case if you agree with them, instead of silencing everything you don't like. Because as someone on the left, you would be doing the left a favor by that. And finally, and this is probably the biggest and most tragic story here, because we started on a really positive note, right, with good development, but oh boy, let's talk about all the bad shit that's been happening, and it's been a lot. It may seem like UK has been on fire for a while now, with all the riots and everything, and what exactly is going on with these riots? So it all started with the death of 3 girls, and very quickly propaganda started spreading how these 3 girls have been killed by Muslims, by immigrants, and that created a strong reaction from their right, the nationalist right and far right. But apparently that's not even the case, that she has been killed by Muslim immigrants. Although at this point I don't really know what to believe. I'm neutral here. I'm not going to say like, okay, this are facts, these people are speaking facts. I don't know. For all I know, they all might be lying. I don't know what to believe. But, you know, when it comes to immigration, it is not something I'm against by any means. I'm very much pro-immigration. I mean, I myself am immigrant here in Norway, because I wasn't born here, and I really enjoy living here. I love Norway, and I think, you know, a reason if someone wishes to move to another country, it is because they love that country, not to disrespect the culture there by any means. But, you know, there are also people who come from war-torn countries, countries stricken by poverty, countries where perhaps they are persecuted and so on. All of that, and you know, they go to a different country because they are looking for a better life or to feel safe, not be persecuted and so on. And I think there's definitely should be room for that, you know. I think that we should be tolerant of that as well. But, you know, like I said, not against immigration. I support a responsible approach towards immigration, and I don't think that UK's response to immigration has been particularly responsible. That, you know, the boats coming mostly from France, those are people who come here to seek privilege, and there's all too many of them coming in. And I can agree with that. Like, I'm standing with British people here who are opposed to that. Perhaps not British people who are completely against immigration, but I think there are a lot of reasonable people there too. But the response to what is going on with riots is never something I'm going to support. Let that be said. You know, like, in the same way I didn't support BLM riots. And in this video I'll be showing clips from a video documenting the riots done by Wesley Winter. I think his channel is covering this in a very interesting way. I've been following him for a while, so I'm just going to leave a link to his channel in the description. I support peaceful protesting. I do not support rioting, violent rioting and destruction. I just think that those riots we are seeing in the UK are probably like the biggest case of riots we have been seeing since what happened in 2020 after George Floyd's death. And you know, from what I've seen, some people attending these protests are people who just believe in the cause, but I'm appalled by what is actually happening, because it's so easy for people to take that too far. And people who suffer the most there are people who are not even involved in any way. I mean, look at these bastards smashing the windows and cars on just random citizens, really. And you know, my heart goes mostly to those citizens, those residents who are just living there and having their houses destroyed, their cars destroyed. Those are people who are most affected by it. And just as I didn't condone the BLM riots, I am not condoning this either.
Disgusted. Absolutely disgusted. This was not a protest, it was an excuse for people to be antisocial essentially, and you can clearly see what they've done.
I'm guessing you live here, this is your car?
It is, yeah.
How do you feel about all this? I mean, you're a local resident, I'm guessing too?
Disgusted and devastated and embarrassed that I'm a Middlesbrough Council resident. I think the police should have done something way before now. They knew this was going to happen, it was advertised clearly enough, but they've clearly done nothing about it once again. Thank you anyway, I appreciate it.
No, it's fine, it's fine. Wow, this guy's car's literally been smashed to pieces. He literally lives here.
And the worst two types that these sort of riots attract will be political extremists who participate in those, but also people who do it as an excuse to just cause a riot, to be violent and destructive. Because there are some very dark people in this world. Oh, that came the wrong way, didn't it?
Motherfucker, are you out of your damn mind?
You know what I mean? Dark personality types. Antisocial individuals who just use that as an excuse to be an asshole, just like that. You know, throwing shit at police, putting cars on fires, destroying property. You're not sending any message, really. You're just being destructive. And it is your country that is happening in the process, but I don't even think those people care. And I don't think those people care about what's actually going on. Those people are just there to cause problem. And they have a good opportunity to do so. And obviously riots will attract these types of individuals. And it was the same with BLM riots, because there was a lot of proper people attending those protests who I have nothing against, even though I may disagree with the cause. And I don't even when it comes to these protests, I'm definitely on the fence by now. I probably need to be way more informed before I form a proper opinion. But I look at what's happening and I'm thinking, what the fuck, man?
And look, from where I literally started the video, there's a car on fire. This is fucking stupid, guys.
And to think that UK was a place I wanted to move into, at this point, I don't think I want to. I'd rather really stay here in Norway, because UK has been going insane, to be honest. And sure, I love me some Yorkshire puddings, I love Cadbury chocolate, but I can make me some Yorkshire pudding here at home, and there are a few places where you can sometimes buy Cadbury chocolate in Norway. So yeah, the truth is we are likely just seeing the beginning of this, and likely more places in England will be taken over by these riots, which doesn't bode well for English citizens and immigrants living there as well. Like, everyone suffers because of that. Generally speaking, I don't support violent protests unless the government responds with violence first, or it's threatening us with violence. I think those are the only cases where we should be open to considering a violent response to that. But otherwise, I don't think it serves anyone, especially when the people you are targeting are not even the government. But, you know, somewhere deep inside, I really do hope that it will calm down, because we don't need more of this shit, really. And it seems like the whole world has been on fire in the last few years. Anyway, sorry for ending this on such a negative note, but here's the thing with my videos, you never know where they might go. So I hope you have a good day, good week, and take good care of yourself, and I will see you in the next video. Ciao.